What happens when you're still grieving, but the world assumes that you're back to normal, or they need or want you to be back to normal. It's been 2 months since my little dog Rue died. I know this is not exactly a strong hook for a post about career strategy, but I feel compelled to share this personal information because life keeps on lifing despite the plans we make in our professional lives. And I think it's important to make it okay and carve out space. So today I'm going to share ways to navigate those first few weeks and months after you've experienced a loss and still need to show up at work every day. Hi, I'm Laverne McKinnon, and welcome to the Moonshot Mentor community. If this is your first time here, know that I'm going a bit rogue to talk about career strategy from a different perspective. I talk about this stuff because I am a career strategist and I'm also a grief coach. And I do love to help people going through career transitions sort through all of the noise spiritually, strategically, tactically. There's never any need to go it alone. And so I'm actually here with you, not going it alone, knowing that you're an amazing community, and I know that you're going to get it. So I think most of us are pretty good at holding boundaries when there's a personal crisis, the death of a loved one, our kids needing us for something, or there's a family milestone like a graduation or a playoff game, and we give ourselves permission to step away or take a day or two, and then we return. But what happens when it's not a one and done thing? What happens when you're still grieving, but the world assumes that you're back to normal, or they need or want you to be back to normal? In our society, we're often given a weekend, maybe a few days, to attend a memorial service or sit Shiva. Then there's an unspoken expectation that the mourning period is over and yay, you can get back to work. Well, grief doesn't work on a capitalist timetable. It works uniquely on yours. And in those early days and weeks, sometimes even the first year, you may look fine on the outside, but feel completely dismantled on the inside. It was a Tuesday when Rue started to cough hack every few hours, and I thought it was allergies, or maybe he wasn't drinking enough water. Our brains do those things. They try to rationalize away some hard truths and realities. And by Friday, he was only eating once a day. He was pretty lethargic, and his breathing had become sort of panty. I Googled symptoms. It's like, that's so silly to do that. But again, it's like looking for answers anywhere. And I got a range of respiratory infection all the way to cancer. And by Sunday, I was like, this is really, really not good. So I called the emergency hospital and I asked if his symptoms warranted us going in. And they said to bring him in immediately. We got there like 20 minutes later, and a crew of, I don't know, maybe it was just like 3 people, maybe 4, but it just felt like an onslaught of people came running out of the back, and they took him from my arms. And then a half hour later, the vet came out to tell us that he had congestive heart failure, and all we could do was make him comfortable. They gave him diuretics and oxygen, and we brought him home late Sunday. And he did have a rebound for about a day, but his breath rate, it started to climb, and I knew it was time. I can't even say the words. Maybe enough time hasn't gone by. Rue died on Wednesday, August 20th. It was around 3:15 in the afternoon. I, of course, was with him. My husband was there, and my 2 daughters, and he was surrounded by love and wrapped up in his favorite blanket. It's been surreal mourning while being a grief coach. I know so much, and it changes nothing. Maybe it changes the naming. I can watch myself from a distance and say, oh, I'm in the raw and tender stage, the stage where everything was a last, our last meal, our last walk, our last cuddle, and then that transition to the firsts. The first dinner without him, the first night without him, the first morning without him, the first time watching TV without him. He really loved our couch time. I would say, Rue, it's time. And he would run across the foyer and he would leap into the living room. We have a sunken living room. And then he would hop on the couch and his little head would poke over the pillows and watch me making my way into the living room. He always seemed so impatient for me to get there. There is no hardest. It's all hard. And then work comes knocking at the door and what to do? I gave myself space. The day after he died, I did work because I just needed a break from all the sadness and from all the crying. Like my face was so swollen from how much I had been crying. And then after that day of work, then I took a few more days of work. And then after about, 10 days or so, I was consistently back at my desk. My head and my heart, they weren't always at my desk. Did I make the wrong decision? I don't know. I do know that staying connected to something that I love working with my clients. That's been really, really helpful to anchor myself in that, and that the giant hole in my heart and my torso. It's soothed by helping others, but not all the time. I canceled on one client 3 times because I just couldn't be present. I would have a grief wave. It seemed like every time she and I were supposed to have a session. She's also an animal lover, and I guess I knew that she would understand because she's lost a lot of pets, and she did. She understood. This is the reality of grief at work. It doesn't disappear after a weekend or a couple of days. And while jobs and bills demand that we show up, we also have to be vigilant and compassionate with ourselves so we don't find ourselves burning out, because it's going to hit us hard. In the early days after Rue died, I found myself swinging between extremes. One day I would bury myself in work because I needed relief from my sadness. The next, I couldn't face my laptop at all. Both choices were valid. Grief isn't linear, and neither is our ability to work through it. If you're facing a similar season, here are a few ways to navigate work in those first weeks and months. The first is to adjust your expectations. Productivity is just not going to look the same. So instead of aiming for your usual capacity, ask what's essential today, what can wait. Shrinking that list, it gives you a greater chance of following through without getting fatigued and burning out. Now, many of us are not going to have the cognitive ability to figure out the priorities. So you may need to ask for help and rely on a colleague or a friend to help you prioritize what truly needs your attention in any given day. It just takes some time for the brain to recognize that there is a loss. So the second thing is to communicate with care, whether it's your boss or your team or a client. You can just let them know, like a simple message, that you might need some extra flexibility this week, and that can make a difference. But it's important to remember that your colleagues and your clients, they are not your therapist and they're not your coach. And so it is important to maintain a boundary with your grief, and that while there is so much love and support, people are not trained to be your therapist and offer you that type of daily support that you need in that manner. So make certain that you do have a support system in place that's outside of your professional environment, because we do have to be sensitive to the hard truth of burning through goodwill. The next thing is to build in recovery time, because grief can be exhausting. It is exhausting. So even if you're able to do just like a short break and you can step outside, or even take like a 5-minute stretch, or just like sit in the sun, but doing something to give yourself a little break in the workday, just to be able to breathe and recenter, because you're using a lot of willpower to be able to move through your day, and willpower is finite. So taking a break is really, really important while you're in those early days and weeks and months of your grief. And then to complement that, anchor into your day things that feel nourishing, whether it's a hot cup of cocoa or getting your nails done, treating yourself to lunch out, listening to music on your commute, just giving yourself a little extra time and care for those small pleasures. They're not frivolous. They're ways of replenishing yourself when so much is depleted. And then finally, and this one, I don't want to say it's controversial, but not everybody agrees with this. But I like carrying a keepsake, like a memento of some sort. Pretending you're not grieving while you're on the job is more dysregulating than acknowledging it. But as I said earlier, not everyone wants to hear about our grief, especially in a professional situation. So having this small memento, a piece of jewelry, a piece of clothing, a pen, a photo, whatever it is, it can help us continue the bond. Because even when someone dies or something goes away, it doesn't mean that that bond is gone. It just changes. And so having that memento or that talisman, that can be very soothing. The truth is, there's no single formula. Working while grieving is about tending to both sides of the equation. The professional obligations you must meet and the human need for gentleness and compassion and being witnessed. Holding them together with vigilance and compassion, you will find your way through. That's it for today. Again, I appreciate you letting me go a little bit rogue and talk about career strategy and grief from a deeply personal and different perspective. If you like this departure from the regular format, let me know by giving me a like or a comment or DM me. And if you want more support to stay motivated, feel less alone, and move through your career with strategy and love and laughter, I'd like to invite you to be part of my Substack community. There are 2 tiers. There's a free tier and there's a paid tier. As a paid member, it's $5 a month. And in addition to everything that the free tier gets, like my weekly blogs, you also get meditations and live pop-up workshops. I do typically one a month or so. A very big thank you to Amanda Kenny for her editing, for her digital expertise, for her planning and strategy, and to Lauren Deacon for being just a really great friend and helping me out with all of the Moonshot branding and research. But most of all, thank you to you. I debated a lot about whether or not I should do this as a post, and I thought, yeah, there's a lot of love in this community. So thank you for being with me today, and I look forward to seeing you and being with you next week. And until then, keep going after your moonshot.